This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Natalie Edwards. Tonight's top stories. Aftershocks rattle Japan's coastal regions of Hokkaido and the Senryuku coast. Residents on alert for a chance of a major follow-up to the 7.5 quake struck off its northeastern coast. Now, Washington will let Nvidia sell its high-end AI chips to China, but hit those exports with a 25% levy. A move some Democrats warn could squander America's AI edge. China and Germany strike a cautious tone in Beijing, but rifts remain from chip and rare earth curbs to China accusing Japan of military threats, as Berlin warns tariffs should be a last resort. And a second day of deadly clashes on the Thailand-Cambodia border, both sides refusing to back down as the death toll edges up and thousands forced to flee, while ASEAN chair Malaysia urges restraint. Ahead on the bulletin, firms from the UK are turning cautiously more upbeat on China, despite a tougher geopolitical and regulatory climate. We get insights from the British Chamber of Commerce in China on how businesses are adapting. Japan is in recovery mode after a 7.5 magnitude earthquake struck late last night, leaving dozens injured and forcing tens of thousands of people to evacuate their homes in freezing temperatures. Well, the earthquake struck off the Japanese coast at 11:15 p.m. local time, triggering tsunami warnings that were lifted in the early hours this morning. The tremor registered an upper 6 in Japan's 1 to 7 scale in the hardest hit city. That's strong enough to make it impossible to remain standing or move without crawling. The epicenter of the quake was 80 kilometers off the coast of Aomori Prefecture at a depth of 54 kilometers. While there were no reports of major damage, more than 50 people were injured, mostly by falling objects. About 90,000 people have been issued evacuation orders. No problems have been detected at nuclear power plants in the region, but the Prime Minister has said there is now a higher than usual possibility of another powerful earthquake in the coming days. For more, we're joined now by CNA's senior correspondent Michio Ishida from Tokyo. Mitch, authorities say that they're assessing the damage. What exactly is the latest?
Well, so far, there are no reports of buildings that have completely collapsed, but there are buildings in Aomori that have been severely damaged. Glasses shattered, water pipes bursting. And the strength of the earthquake was nothing like what I've ever experienced in Tokyo. It was very strong, according to reports. Now, analysts say structures in northern Japan are built to withstand heavy snow, so they could be stronger than homes in the south, like including Tokyo. And I heard that in Hokkaido Shin Chitose Airport, there were 200 passengers stranded due to heavy snow. And they had to deal with the earthquake, too. And local media say ceilings there were damaged. There were roads damaged. In Aomori's Tohoku-cho, a car was stuck between a collapsed road. The driver was rescued. In Aomori, as well, 139 public schools were suspended classes. And Aomori reported 36 residents were injured as of 2 p.m. local time, and 11 injured in Hokkaido. A hospital in Aomori was partially flooded as a sprinkler broke. The governor requested the self-defense force to transport patients. Japanese media say utilities have been restored. But in any case, many people were scared. Let's take a listen to their response.
避難するか迷ったんですけど、何かあったら怖いので、すぐ避難しようって言って避難してきました。
今回は地震の後、割と早めに津波注意報 岩手県までの警報がすぐ出ましたので、今回は来るのかなというふうには覚悟しましたね。
So, Michio, we heard the Prime Minister also asking residents to be prepared for the next big one in the coming days. How are people responding to that?
Well, those living in Tohoku or northeastern Japan have experienced a magnitude 9 earthquake and massive tsunamis on March 11, 2011. So they basically have an idea how to respond. They also remember just 2 days after the magnitude 7.3 earthquake on March 9, 2011, the devastating quake and tsunami were triggered. And, that's the kind of scenario seismologists have in mind. A magnitude 7 or stronger could lead to bigger tremors based on their data. Now, until next Tuesday, residents in Hokkaido to Chiba Prefecture are encouraged to carry with them their essentials, change of clothes, food, water, medicine, in case they are stranded by a strong earthquake and possibly tsunamis. Packing warm clothes is especially important as temperature dips to below 0 in northern Japan. And there are also those carrying on with their daily lives. That's the case with some of my friends I've been speaking to in Aomori and Miyagi, which are under the mega quake advisory. Now, authorities are on the alert until next Tuesday. And the best thing is that a big one doesn't hit.
That would be the best case scenario, indeed. Well, thanks so much for that report. CNA senior correspondent Michio Ishida, live from Tokyo. Now, for more insights into how Japan copes with earthquakes, we will be speaking with Robert J. Geller, Professor Emeritus of Seismology at the University of Tokyo. In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has allowed Nvidia to sell its H200 AI chips to China. That's in exchange for a 25% levy on those sales. Mr. Trump adding that the sales will be done under conditions that would allow for strong national security. The U.S. Department of Commerce is finalizing the details. And the same approach will apply to AMD, Intel, and other U.S. companies. Mr. Trump's decision marking a sharp turn from the Biden administration policy on restricting shipments of advanced AI chips due to national security concerns. But the measure still not final, as it could face opposition in the U.S. Congress. Now, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson did not directly confirm the agreement in its regular press briefing, but said that China has always advocated for mutual benefit and win-win outcomes. To the Trump administration, allowing the sale of H200 chips to China is a compromise. It's dead against sharing Nvidia's high-end Blackwell processor, but it's also concerned that excluding chips from U.S.-China trade entirely would bolster China's chip-making capabilities. So middle ground was reached with the H200. The processor is Nvidia's second-best artificial intelligence chip. It's around 6 times more powerful than the H20 that was made especially for the Chinese market. Now, making H200 available would give Chinese firms access to technology better than any AI chip that can be manufactured domestically so far. Now, tech giant Huawei has plans to rival the H200, but its roadmap indicates 2027 at the earliest. Now, clearing the chip for export is driving fears that it may undercut America's technological leadership. Several U.S. lawmakers have called the sale of H200 processors to China a boon to its industry and military. They say Beijing will utilize the stronger tech to strengthen defense and surveillance. But the H200 still does not compare to the latest Blackwell chip, which the U.S. has barred from export. The B200 is Nvidia's next-generation flagship model. That's about 50% faster than the H200 for training AI systems. Studies have also shown models with Blackwell tech are 5 times faster at making predictions. The approval, however, comes as China is reducing its reliance on American chips. Beijing in recent months upped the pressure on local firms against buying tech that has been specifically downgraded for the Chinese market. The cyberspace regulator also says that the H20 chips are a potential security risk, though Nvidia denies those allegations. Now, Germany's Foreign Minister Johann Wadephol has wrapped up a high-stakes visit to Beijing, a trip dominated by Europe's concerns over China's export curbs, supply chain security, and, of course, rising geopolitical tensions. Now, talks delved into China's increasingly strained ties with Japan, with Beijing accusing Tokyo of military provocation and taking reckless positions on Taiwan. Mr. Vodopol also pressed China to ease restrictions on rare earth minerals and semiconductors, warning of the impact on European manufacturers. Now, for more on this visit, CNA's Tan Yuguan will join us live from Shanghai. Now, Yuguan, China issued a sharp rebuke of Japan during those talks. So what's been Beijing's response, and how did the German foreign minister respond to that?
Well, the rebuke was delivered by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. In strong and direct language, the Chinese diplomat told his German counterpart that Japan was threatening China militarily. According to China's official Xinhua news agency, the foreign minister also evoked World War II history in his talks with his German counterpart. He noted that unlike Germany, Japan has yet to conduct a thorough reflection of its history of aggression in the 8 decades since the end of World War II. He said that given that this year is the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, Japan, quote, as a defeated nation, unquote, should have acted with greater caution. Taiwan, he noted, was the very territory that Japan colonized for half a century, committing countless crimes against the Chinese people. Yet now, he says, Japan's current leader is trying to exploit the Taiwan question to provoke trouble and threaten China militarily. This, he says, is completely unacceptable. In the Chinese readout, his German counterpart, meanwhile, reaffirmed that Germany remains firmly committed to the One China policy, calling this position unwavering. He also said that China and Germany should strengthen communication and become reliable partners amid a global uncertainty. But at his news conference in Beijing, the German envoy made several additional points. He stressed that the Taiwan Strait is one of the world's most important trade routes and that any escalation there would directly affect Europe. So Germany's One China policy is valid and unchanged. He also raised the war in Ukraine. He told reporters that China is one of the few countries with real influence over Russia, and he appealed to Beijing to encourage Moscow to return to the negotiating table.
Also, Yuguan, Germany, did they manage to make any real progress on Chinese rare earth and semiconductor curbs?
Well, the German foreign minister also met China's commerce minister in Beijing. According to a statement from China's Ministry of Commerce, Mr. Wang said that China attaches great importance to Germany's concerns on issues including export controls and matters related to Xperia. He said that the most urgent task, however, was for the Dutch government to stop what Beijing calls improper administrative interference in the Dutch takeover of the Xperia facility in the Netherlands. He describes this as necessary to stabilize the semiconductor supply chain. The minister also said that China is gradually applying a general licensing system in rare earths and that export license exemptions for certain Xperia-related chips have been implemented. Meanwhile, at his news conference, the German foreign minister said Chinese officials had signaled they would prioritize efforts to address mineral supply bottlenecks faced by European manufacturers. According to AFP, he said that Beijing was taking a constructive approach to issuing rare earth export licenses to German companies. He described this as a positive commitment and urged German firms to continue submitting license applications. Now, German manufacturers, especially in high-tech automotive, clean energy or defense sectors, depend heavily on rare earth elements which are used in magnets, motors, sensors, batteries, and many other key components. According to one German study, Germany imports all of its rare earth, with roughly around 95% coming from China.
Many thanks for that. CNA's senior correspondent Han Yuguan reporting to us live from Shanghai. Well, we are going to go for a short break now, but coming up on East Asia tonight, British businesses in China are starting 2026 in a tough environment, with most saying conditions have grown more complex for 6 straight years. We get more insights from Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in China. Plus, Japan riding a wave of blockbuster IPOs, raising its biggest haul in 7 years.
We're in a chaotic moment.
Midnight later tonight here in Thailand, it's too little too late.
And I asked whether there's a political element to it. Nobody can exactly tell you why.
Look, things are never perfect when you're engaged in politics. Each one doing what each one wants.
So what's the United Nations doing amidst this world of supreme chaos?
We're pushing for answers every night on Asia Tonight.
This is for those who move, those who don't wait for things to happen. They make them happen. They don't follow maps, they draw them and build what isn't there. They don't call it instinct, they call it Tuesday.
At Standard Chartered, we're here for those who never stand still, who want trusted expertise in the world's most dynamic markets.
Now is your time.
CNA Summit, coming soon in February 2026.
South Korea's dark history of repression, nearly revived by a martial law bid.
그 순간 유리창이 깨지고 막 들어오고 있고 아주 긴박한 상황이다.
Sparking defiance and the defense of democracy.
몸빵이라도 하고 소리라도 질러 보려고.
How the martial law crisis changed the nation. Wednesday on CNA.
With the uncertainties of the financial world, where does our economy truly stand? Keep up to date with the latest market trends and get the in-depth analysis that you need to understand the forces driving the global economies. Kickstart your day with an informed view of the business world. Asia Business on Asia First, weekdays on CNA. Brought to you by UOB.
It's Asia's leading beach destination, but tourists are skipping the Philippines.
Minsan ilang araw walang mga foreigner.
Why is the archipelago trailing behind its neighbours in visitor arrivals?
The number of tourist arrivals in the Philippines in the last 12 months is about 55-60% of 2019.
People think we're a dangerous place.
And can it attract tourists again?
We just have to do more in marketing our country better.
Insight, Thursday on CNA.
Hello again. You're watching East Asia Tonight, and it is now time for business news with Roland Lim. So, Roland, we've got President Trump there giving the green light to selling those high-end AI chips to China. I mean, what do you think? Is it a game changer or is it actually risky business?
Well, Nvidia stock is soaring, but China may not bite. And top Democrats at home, they're also slamming the deal as a smuggling bust highlights the threats. Asian chip stocks wobbled after President Trump said the U.S. will allow Nvidia's H200 processors to be exported to China and will collect a 25% fee on such sales. Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix in Korea lower by 1% and 1.9% respectively after the news was announced. And Taiwan's TSMC also lower by 1%. Taking a look at Chinese AI stocks. Our chip makers opened more than 1% lower, but quickly recovered losses. Cambricon Technologies, which has been compared to Nvidia due to their similar focus on building core processor chips and GPUs, closing out the day 1.4% higher. Another Nvidia contender, More Threads, surging by 5.73%. However, the top chip foundry in China, SMIC, its shares in Hong Kong, slumping 4.17%. The wider markets in Greater China in the doldrums. Economists cite a lack of urgency for policy stimulus from Beijing, dampening sentiment. The Hang Seng Index, I should say, in Hong Kong, closing out the day 1.3%. That is the worst performer. Shanghai Composite closing down 0.37. Shenzhen also down by the same margin. One analyst we spoke to says the White House allowing the sale of Nvidia's H200 chips to China could crimp local Chinese development.
So in China, basically, apart from Nvidia, there are three major domestic suppliers in the space, which are Byron, More Threats, and Capricorn. So these three names, they don't have the very strong ecosystem that Nvidia has right now, especially in the way that they program their chips, which Nvidia does that by CUDA. But I think in the approval by Trump to sell more chips in China would be an effort to contain these ecosystem development efforts by these local replacements. Moving on to the supply chain, basically, if we look at foundries like TSMC, and other Taiwanese foundries as well, on the AI side, the demand is so strong that TSMC cannot keep up with the current demand, even without the China supply chain. So if Nvidia can sell more AI chips to China, that would either lengthen the queue, or there is another possibility that some of the consumer grade graphics could be allocated to Samsung as well.
Now, sentiment across the British business community about China is at its highest since before the pandemic, despite US-China trade tensions and a sluggish economy. That's according to the latest business sentiment survey by the British Chambers of Commerce in China. The report is based on responses from over 300 British businesses operating in China, pointing to a difficult but resilient market. Nearly 60% of firms surveyed say conditions have become harder this year compared to a year ago, but the proportion of companies experiencing improved ease of doing business saw a modest rise, I should say. Legal, financial, and healthcare companies are driving that rebound, with sports, travel, and creative industries also benefiting as Chinese consumers shift towards experiences. But education and manufacturing remain under strain, facing falling demand, policy pressure, and strong competition from state-owned firms. Still, most British companies plan to hold or to increase investment next year, targeting growth in sectors aligned with China's priorities for 2026. For more insights, we are joined by Chris Torrance. He is the chairman of the British Chambers of Commerce in China and managing director, Greater China, of APCO. Chris, good to have you on the show. Now, your survey shows that nearly 60% of UK companies feel things were tougher this year in China, but they are now more optimistic for 2026 than ever before COVID. What's the one big signal this sends about how UK businesses see China today?
Well, I think it's difficult to boil it down into one signal. I mean, as you said in your comments just now, there are challenges facing British businesses in China. This is the sixth year in a row that business is finding it more difficult, and of course that speaks to the regulatory challenges and the market access issues that companies face here. But it also speaks to the macro environment and the geopolitically motivated trade challenges that British companies in China face through US-China tariffs and export controls, because inevitably UK companies are tied up with both the US and China. And it also speaks to the consumption and the changing consumer sentiment that's here. It's been weak and it is evolving. There are some bright spots there. But I think really the reason for the optimism is that it's been tough in the past, and that there is actually some success and some proof that sustained engagement, which we're seeing under the UK government, which has been in office for 18 months, that kind of sustained engagement that we've seen with regular visits by officials over the last 18 months, that really is having a positive result on the ground. Because every time we have this government-to-government dialogue, you've got British business leaders in the room, and there have been some pretty good discussions. There's a growing level of trust there, and I think that's really helping to move the needle on some business issues which have for many years been a challenge. And I think that's probably the single biggest takeaway that I've seen, this optimism based on more engagement between the two governments.
Chris, you mentioned that the rules continually changing or shifting in China. China still feels tricky, and the business is quite cutthroat, as it were, with these changes in the rules. What are the top 2 or 3 headaches that UK firms are griping about to you operationally, or just from a regulations standpoint?
Some of the biggest challenges relate to transparency and understanding exactly what regulations are coming out when. But I do think that the Chinese government has really made a big effort to increase consultancy with members of the international business community before big regulations come out. So that's been a big help. I mean, I'm not saying so much that regulations are chopping and changing the whole time. I mean, we've seen certain market access issues in our sentiment survey and in our position paper, which is another publication we launch every summer. We've seen those challenges, which are long-standing ones. So it's not so much the notion that there's chopping and changing. It's just that when change does come, historically there hasn't been much engagement or much transparency about that process. However, with this strengthened UK-China relationship and the more, the momentum that's been built up through these frequent government visits by UK government officials, I think we're really beginning to see a change in results for UK businesses on the ground. And I have to say that the Chinese government stakeholders we're dealing with are increasingly open to discussions and to supporting business as it comes in. And that may, of course, be driven by the fact that there's a real need and a sense of urgency in trying to get the economy going again and consumption really, really going again here in China.
Apart from the restarting of the big economic talks and trade committees these years, that seemed to have perked up services firms. What are the real wins for businesses that you're noticing, and what else do you expect from both governments? Maybe a trip by the UK Prime Minister in 2026, do you think?
So, well, nothing confirmed in terms of UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer possibly visiting China, but of course it would be welcome. The British business community would welcome it as well. But regardless of that, the momentum, we know that there will be other senior government officials visiting, and so we understand that is going to keep helping British business push for greater opportunities on the ground. I think some of the success stories we've seen, which are directly related either to government visits or to being aligned with China's own national strategic priorities. Some of those wins include, as you mentioned earlier, law firms. We've seen a huge uptick in optimism on the part of British law firms because they can now operate more broadly across the country. And they are doubtless also tapping into Chinese companies as they go global. So there's a great opportunity for the professional services sector, of which is obviously a very important part of the UK economy. And then I think healthcare is the other sector that's worth mentioning. We've seen AstraZeneca's significant investment into R&D here, a real demonstration of long-term commitment to China. And that, underscores the importance of the Chinese consumer market to big British multinational clients. It also aligns with China's own healthy 2030 goals to improve healthcare standards across the country. And it speaks to, I think, also China's growing innovation in areas like biotech. So we're seeing biotech partnerships, Chinese biotech startups, which are, very attractive investment or partnership options for British companies, given that healthcare is an area of excellence for many UK companies as well.
Chris, we've run out of time. Thank you for those insights on the environment of doing business in China. Chris Torrance, Chairman of the British Chambers of Commerce in China and Managing Director, Greater China at APCO. And that's it for business. I'll be back a little later on.
Looking forward to that, Roland. Thanks so much. Right, let's go for another break now. But coming up on East Asia tonight, Japan in recovery mode. after a powerful 7.5 magnitude quake shook northern parts of the country late Monday night. Officials urging for better preparations should a major one strike. But are such calls for readiness getting through sufficiently? Well, we'll be getting insights from an expert in just a moment. This is East Asia Tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. Washington eases up on the sale of sophisticated AI chips to China, but wants a quarter of Nvidia's revenue from exports of its high-end H200 processor. The measure still needing U.S. congressional approval. China and Germany strike a cautious tone in Beijing, but rifts remain, from chips and rare earth curbs to China accusing Japan of military threats. And Japan braces for possible major aftershocks following a 7.5 magnitude quake off its northeastern coast. Tens of thousands have been forced to evacuate their homes in freezing temperatures. And for more, let's bring in Robert J. Geller, Professor Emeritus Seismology from the University of Tokyo. Well, thanks, Prof, for joining us this evening. Perhaps let's just start with the basics so that viewers can get a clear idea on what exactly happened. For the layperson out there, can you just explain to us what kind of earthquake this was in terms of depth, size, and as well as that small tsunami, and whether is this actually business as usual for Japan or a sign that something bigger might actually be building up?
Okay, well, first, it was a reasonably normal big earthquake for Japan. It was a bit deep, 50 kilometers, so there was not a significant tsunami. And there always is some chance of a magnitude 8 earthquake, a larger one. But, and it's a bit more likely than normal, probability-wise, but not so much that people should worry. If I can give some very approximate numbers, there might ordinarily be one chance in 10,000 of a magnitude 8 earthquake within a 1-week period. Now, maybe for the next week, the chance is 10 times higher, one chance in 1,000. So that's not really anything to be alarmed about. People should just check their precautions. Also, as far as the evacuation, that was ended at about 6 o'clock this morning, and everyone is back home now.
Well, thanks for sharing those numbers. So it seems like that major earthquake, of maybe magnitude 8, just to recap, you said one chance in 10,000. But let's just talk about Japan's systems this time around. How well do you think it works in terms of actually buying people life-saving seconds or minutes?
Well, it worked okay, not perfectly though. It's a very hard problem to issue a tsunami warning without either going overboard or without failing to issue a warning when there's a damaging tsunami. And the government errs a bit on the side of caution. So often they issue a warning and the tsunami is less large than was forecast. But as long as that's still only once every few years, people don't mind evacuating as a precaution.
Yeah, so I've been following a bit of your work, Professor, and you have actually talked quite a fair bit about how long-term or short-term earthquake predictions don't actually work, and it may not even help ordinary people. What exactly is the problem with these forecasts, and how do you think Japan should be talking about that risk instead? Because you're saying that they're erring on the side of caution.
Well, first of all, what I always tell people is that in the present state of scientific knowledge, a large earthquake can hit Japan anywhere, at any time, and without warning. So people should always be reasonably prepared in their house and in their lives for the possibility of an earthquake. But on the other hand, it's a very rare occurrence in terms of everyday risks. So there's no reason to worry that much either. But for political reasons, the government likes to make earthquake warnings when they really should not be doing so.
So, but still, I mean, you can imagine the people who are living near the coast, right? They might still have that worry about what they should be doing next. So, in terms of the communication, how do you think that risk should be communicated to people so that they take it seriously, but in such a way that they don't feel like they're constantly under threat?
Well, the risk of a tsunami is very different from the risk of an earthquake itself. That after a large earthquake has occurred, the government can issue a tsunami warning. So it's different from trying to predict an earthquake before the earthquake has occurred. What's happened in the case of a tsunami warning, they know a large earthquake has already occurred offshore, and they have a few minutes before the tsunami wave reaches the shore. So in that particular case, they should err on the side of caution and tell people to evacuate when there's some reasonable chance that a big tsunami could hit. And I think the public understands that, and they don't worry or don't complain if the tsunami is smaller than the government forecast, because that's a very rare occurrence, maybe once only every 5 or 10 years.
Well, many thanks for your insights on a night when, some people, or rather quite a lot of people, are on edge. Thank you so very much for speaking with us, Robert J. Geller, Professor Emeritus Seismology from the University of Tokyo. Elsewhere in Asia, Thailand and Cambodia trading blame over escalating border clashes, with the fighting now in its second day, threatening to derail a weeks-old ceasefire. Now, the death toll in Cambodia rising to 7 civilians, while 3 Thai soldiers have died. The Thai army says that there is ongoing engagement, accusing Cambodia of heavy rocket fire and shelling and reporting severe impact from suicide drones. Cambodia says the Thai military is also using drones to carry out firing. Thailand's defense ministry says its armed forces are determined to defend the country's sovereignty, while accusing Phnom Penh of violating the truce. CNA's Saksitsa Sambat asked Thailand's foreign minister, Sihasak Poengkatkyo, whether Bangkok is engaging or willing to engage with other diplomatic channels aside from Cambodia.
We have not been in talks with any of the parties. We have not received any offers yet. And right now, I think, for talks to be able to take place, that requires a change of ways on the part of the Cambodian, side. And I think that's where things stand right now. And so we did not start this. And for it to end, I think the Cambodians have to come around to realize that the path that they're taking would lead to more conflict, would lead to more losses, which is not good for both countries.
Cambodia's former leader, Hun Sen, says the country has retaliated in the renewed border clashes after Phnom Penh earlier denied firing back. The defense ministry says Cambodia urges Thailand to return to negotiations and uphold the ceasefire.
ក្រសួងការពារជាតិនិងកងយុទ្ធពលខេមរៈភូមិន្ទបន្តគោរពនិងអនុវត្តឥតងារេនៅក្នុងការសម្រេចចិត្តរបស់រាជរដ្ឋាភិបាលនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាក្នុងការដោះស្រាយបញ្ហាដោយសន្តិវិធីស្របតាមច្បាប់អន្តរជាតិដើម្បីការពារអធិបតេយ្យបូរណភាពទឹកដីព្រមទាំងសុខសុវត្ថិភាពរបស់ប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាទន្ទឹមនឹងនេះកម្ពុជាសូមអំពាវនាវឲ្យភាគីថៃវិលត្រឡប់មកអនុវត្តវិញនៅបទឈប់បាញ់និងសេចក្តីថ្លែងការណ៍រួមស្តីពីកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងសន្តិភាពកម្ពុជាថៃដែលបានចុះហត្ថលេខាកាលពីថ្ងៃទី26ខែតុលាឆ្នាំ2025ក្រោមការធ្វើជាសាក្សីរបស់អេដាមប្រធានាធិបតីសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកដូណាល់ត្រាំនិងអេដាមនាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីម៉ាឡេស៊ីអាន់វ៉ាអ៊ីប្រាហ៊ីមដែលជាប្រធានបដូវវេនអាស៊ាន
On the ground, gunfire and explosions shook border towns. The Thai army reporting that more than 430,000 people have been evacuated so far. The fighting is said to be the fiercest since July, when a 5-day exchange killed more than 40 people. Now, hundreds of thousands also fleeing to safety in Cambodia. The U.S., meantime, is trying to shore up the truce that it brokered along with Malaysia. A senior White House official says it expects Cambodia and Thailand to fully honor their commitments to end the conflict. Malaysian leader Anwar Ibrahim called for maximum restraint and warns work to stabilize ties risks unraveling. He added that the region cannot afford to see long-standing disputes slip into cycles of confrontation. Well, more on the conflict and its impact on civilians on either side of the border can be found on our website, cna.asia, and on our mobile app. So do check it out. Coming up on East Asia tonight, the International Air Transport Association paints an optimistic picture of global aviation in 2026, even as carriers battle supply chain bottlenecks, high costs, and shifting trade flows in Asia. And Thailand's set to raise the curtain for the 33rd edition of the SEA Games. Details from our correspondent when we get back.
At Standard Chartered, we're here for those who never stand still, who want trusted expertise in the world's most dynamic markets.
Now is your time.
South Korea's dark history of repression, nearly revived by a martial law bid.
그 순간 유리창이 깨지고 막 들어오고 있고 아주 긴박한 상황이
Sparking defiance and the defense of democracy.
몸빵이라도 하고 소리라도 질러 보려고.
How the martial law crisis changed the nation. Wednesday on CNA.
It's Asia's leading beach destination, but tourists are skipping the Philippines.
Minsan ilang araw walang mga foreigner.
Why is the archipelago trailing behind its neighbours in visitor arrivals?
The number of tourist arrivals in the Philippines in the last 12 months is about 55-60% of 2019.
People think we're a dangerous place.
And can it attract tourists again?
We just have to do more in marketing our country better.
Insight, Thursday on CNA.
The first thing in the morning as Asia wakes up to a new day. Get up to speed with major events shaping lives in the region and other parts of the world.
Putting things in perspective with eye-opening reports and expert analysis as a new era of global politics breeds power struggles and shifting alliances.
We get to the heart of the matter and take stock of the issues you're invested in with on-the-ground reports and wall-to-wall coverage. Viewing it all from a regional lens because we put Asia first.
This week on Singapore Hour, hooked on adventure? We've got you covered with 3 wild ways for a good time in Singapore.
I'm just happy that the monkeys are not laughing at us right now.
And a hidden world of artistry where you'd least expect it.
Bird, cat, dog, duck, spider, merlion, all dead but transformed into art.
Get the inside scoop on Singapore Hour, Friday on CNA.
Quay bài hát này mà dead boy. Mulai pula ada just to feel baik. Enak tiba sih jauh dari rocket.
Misinformation created panic, confusion among the public.
नेपालको ढोकामा हामी उभिरहेका छौं त्यो ढोका खोल्न
Hello again. We've got Roland Lim. As promised, he's back with more business news. And I want to ask you about global airlines. And are they flying high towards more profits in 2026?
Yeah, the Global Trade Association expects profits to soar. Planes will be packed as Asia's traffic is booming, but not without some turbulence. Global airlines set to record earnings next year, but margins will stay razor thin. The International Air Transport Association, or IATA's latest report forecasts total industry revenue to top $1.05 trillion as 5.2 billion passengers take to the skies. The report projects global airlines earning $41 billion in net profits in 2026, with a net margin of just around 4%, as carriers battle supply chain bottlenecks, high costs, and shifting trade flows in Asia. Now, planes are said to be fuller than ever, with load factors near 84%, as supply chain problems delay new aircraft and keep capacity tight. The Asia-Pacific region, led by China and India, remains the biggest driver of traffic growth, while the Middle East continues to post the strongest profit margins. Air cargo is holding up better than expected, supported by e-commerce and tech shipments linked to AI investments. But IATA warns that returns do not cover the airline's cost of capital, even as the industry invests in cleaner fuels and pushes towards its 2050 net zero emissions goal. East Asia is powering the global travel rebound, led by China's reopening and surging regional demand. But can airlines keep up with capacity costs and trade tensions? Well, my colleague Yasmin Yonkers will be speaking to IATA's chief, Willie Walsh, on the latest global aviation report in about an hour's time on Asia Tonight. Please stay tuned. Chinese Premier Li Qiang says that tariffs have dealt a severe blow to the global economy, and the consequences are becoming more apparent.
从今年年初起，就有关税大棒在满世界挥舞，各种经贸限制措施不断的增多，可以说严重冲击了世界经济。随着事态的发展，关税 损人损己的后果日益的显现，各方维护自由贸易的呼声也越来越强烈。
Mr. Lee was speaking to the heads of the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and the World Bank. Without naming the US, he called for reforms to international economic governance. Despite the global downturn, Mr. Lee noted a rise in investment in the tech sector. He says artificial intelligence is becoming central to trade, transforming traditional industries and driving growth in new sectors, including smart robots and wearable devices. Initial public offerings in Japan this year have raised the most capital since 2018. Now that's as companies like JX Advanced Metals and SBI Shinsei Bank sold shares in billion-dollar deals. Market reports say the amount raised reached $7.7 billion US, and Japan is part of a wave of blockbuster IPOs sweeping Asia. Its benchmark Topics Index rose to another record this year, boosted by the end of decades-long deflation and a push for better corporate governance. South Korean police have raided the Seoul headquarters of e-commerce giant Coupang over a massive customer data leak. Authorities say personal details of nearly 34 million users, that's nearly two-thirds of the country's population, were exposed, including names, contacts, addresses, and some order histories. Payment information and passwords were not affected. The breach, traced to Coupang's overseas servers between June and November, is suspected to involve a former Chinese employee. The firm now faces a U.S. class action suit as Seoul demands clear compensation plans for affected users. And that's all for business.
Thailand is set to raise the curtains on the 33rd SEA Games in a grand ceremony that organizers promise will be packed with culture and color. More than 10,000 athletes from 11 nations are taking part in this edition of the multi-sport event, which returns to the kingdom after nearly 2 decades. Well, we've got Alif Amshar is joining us live from the Raja Mangala National Stadium in Bangkok. Alif, first up, tell us what's happening and where you are.
Well, Oteli, the stage is set for the Thailand SEA Games to begin here, starting in about an hour's time. The sun has just begun to set, casting a beautiful golden glow on the iconic Rajamangala Stadium, where I'm currently at. On my right and on my left, thousands of fans have flocked into the stadium to get into the streets, streaming in to get into the seats for the best spot for tonight's show. I just want to bring your attention to that center stage right at the back of your screen there. That is where the bulk of the main highlights are set to take place tonight, where performers, hundreds of them, will bring to life Thailand's culture and colors that they are so well known for. And that is where most of the highlights, the performance, are set to take place. Of course, the organizers have promised a show that will revolve around the themes of unity, togetherness, celebrating the region's sporting excellence as well as culture. They want to put diversity front and center. We know that there have been certain challenges in the lead up to today's event. There's also the border tensions between Thailand and Cambodia that you've spoken about earlier in the bulletins, but the organizers want to mark this a momentous occasion to celebrate regional unity and regional togetherness as well. Of course, one highlight for today will be the marching of the athletes. Singapore's contingent will be led in by badminton player Yeo Tia Min and jiu-jitsu exponent Noah Lim. Certainly lots of dazzling performances as well from a host of from celebrities. I won't spoil too much on who the headliner will be, but if you're a K-pop fan, you're in for a treat. Let's have a listen as well as to why the locals and visitors to Thailand are so excited about tonight's event.
I'm very excited and very honored to be the represent about Thailand, and my hometown is show some special in the performance. A lot of stars and a lot of artists show for the open up to SEA Games.
I'm here because of our team, baseball team, and we just finished our 4th game today. And I'm here to see the crowd, to see how all the Thailand people, all the creativity, all the culture, and it's really good here.
2 weeks with all sorts of sporting action. So Olive, tell us, what can we look forward to?
Well, I tell you, plenty to look forward to over the next 2 weeks, so don't blink. Singapore will be sending a record-sized contingent of 930 athletes competing across 48 sports, so plenty of action from Team Singapore alone. From tomorrow, we can expect the swimmers to dominate in the pool, just as they have done so at the past SEA Games, led by veterans Kwa Ting Wan, a long-distance swimmer Gan Ching Pui, and Amanda Lim, the sprint specialist who will be competing at her 10th SEA Games. Can you believe it? Elsewhere, we also have Olympic bronze medalist Max Bader. We've covered his journey extensively over the past few years in Paris, watching him clinch that historic bronze in sailing at the Paris Games, and this time round he'll be making his debut. So my colleague Nikhil Kata and I will be in Thailand and in Bangkok and Chonburi over the next 2 weeks, covering Team Singapore's exploits at these games. Certainly one thing to watch is how much of the sporting standards have improved here at this SEA Games compared to the last. Of course, we know that the other nations have lots of Olympic level athletes in the ranks as well who have gone on to win Olympic medals. So certainly they'll be eager to spoil Singapore's plans as well.
That sounds like a lot to look forward to, and good luck to all our athletes. I'm going to leave you, Olive, to enjoy the opening ceremony of the SEA Games in Bangkok. Thanks so much for that. CNA's Alif Amshar reporting to us from Bangkok. And of course, you can catch the 33rd SEA Games Thailand 2025 live on Me Watch. And also do follow MediaCorp Sports on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook for all the latest updates. And on that note, it is time to wrap up this Tuesday's edition of East Asia Tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia. Thanks for watching.